Cameron Boozer is ready to take over the college basketball world by storm. We're calling him Super Cam, and he's going to be able to do great things for the Duke Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And on today's show, we're going to focus a whole lot on this Duke men's basketball program led by head coach Jon Scheyer. And our focus today is going to be on the play of incoming freshman Cameron Boozer, who's ready to lead the way and take over the college basketball world by storm. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free. Wherever it is you get your podcasts, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. You can also watch us each and every day on YouTube as we are less than 20 away from 4,000 subscribers here on our channel, and I can't wait to celebrate that milestone with all of you guys. Also, be sure to follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils or on Instagram and TikTok as well. Locked On Blue Devils on those platforms. So without further ado, let's bring him back on. Consecutive days in a row now for our favorite Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham, who's with us now 2 days in a row. Kev, I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing just as good as I was doing yesterday, JJ. Thanks for having me again, as always.
Absolutely, man. Let's get after it. Let's talk about this Duke basketball team. Of course, earlier in the week, we were talking about sleepers potentially for this squad. We talked Malik Brown. We talked Caden Boozer. We talked a variety of different players a little bit further down the bench, even a freshman in Sebastian Wilkins, who we did not talk as much about because he's a well-known commodity, is Cameron Boozer. And it's strange, Kevin, to describe him as a well-known commodity when this guy hasn't even played a second of college basketball yet. But we're preparing for a year of Super Cam. We're preparing for Cameron Boozer to lead the way for Duke this year.
Well, it's also strange to say that, JJ, because we're coming off of a year where Cooper Flagg was just at Duke. And I think Cooper Flagg, this is a good question. Like, Cooper Flagg might have been the most known commodity, like you just said, of an incoming freshman since when? And I'm not talking just about in Duke basketball history, but I'm talking about overall. Like, had there been Zion Williamson, I think, and obviously that goes hand in hand. It is a Duke player, and he was known nationally just for that high school mixtape and all the highlights he had in high school.
Yeah.
But Cameron Boozer's been in the spotlight his entire year. I mean, we've talked about it at nauseum, just about going back to his recruitment, being the son of Carlos Boozer, and then obviously growing up around basketball and the NBA and all these great basketball players. And then obviously Duke. Obviously the connection from the Boozer family to the Duke basketball program goes a long way back as well. So known commodity, a lot of expectations on him. Talked about how much of a winner he was throughout his high school and AAU circuit days. And he's hoping that translates to the college game. And I think a lot of people think it will, at least from an individual's talent.
This is a guy, Kevin, who was scoring 22 points a night for his high school basketball team, rebounded the ball really well, was able to shoot it from the outside, dominant as a post player as his father Carlos was. Cameron's got a lot of that in his game. It's his other brother. It's his brother Caden that's kind of the outlier to what their old man Carlos was able to do at the college level. But, I feel like what we're going to be able to see from him right away is just a scorer that can get buckets and even be able to stretch it outside. I think that's kind of what surprised me a little bit when you see these clips that Duke's putting out, when you go back to the open practice that the Blue Devils have. Like, man, he looks comfortable stepping out and shooting it a little bit, Kev.
That had to be the most surprising thing we've seen all summer, right? And I'm just not talking about that specific clip of that specific open practice. I'm talking about in general, even in some of the highlight footage that we've seen posted to social media, is the comfortability that man right there, Cameron Boozer, has shooting from the mid-range. He has a really good mid-range game as well, and the three-point line could be his friend just because, like you were saying, in high school, we saw him dominate the paint. We saw him absolutely bully his way into defenders. You saw the end ones. You saw the dunks. You didn't necessarily see the three-point shot. So seeing that throughout this summer, certainly encouraging. And we'll see if that can be kept up throughout the fall. And then once we get into the exhibition games in October and then the regular season in early November.
Excited to see him add more to his game as well throughout the course of the season, playing alongside his twin brother. Their camaraderie that they've already got established has got to be paramount for Duke's success. And then, adding in these other freshmen, the 5 returners for the Duke basketball team, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Zion had a lot of hype. Cooper Flagg very clearly had a whole lot of hype this past year. I think you add kind of putting Cooper over the top, considering his run with USA basketball before college, and, all the NBA players talking about him beforehand. I think you can add a little bit of hype for Cameron Boozer because he comes from a basketball family with his dad having the NBA career that he did. But I am going to be curious what the hype looks like around Cameron Boozer, man, because you look at the freshmen across the board. You've talked about this a whole lot, Kevin. I'll tee you up here. But it's a freshman class nationally that there is not much separation at all between the top 3 right now.
No, there's really not. And you look at the 3 of Darren Peterson at Kansas, AJ DeBonsa at BYU, and Cameron Boozer at Duke. And at some point, every single one held the number 1 ranking in their respective classes. Cameron Boozer became the number 1 player in 2025 when Cooper Flagg reclassified a year forward. And then AJ DeBonsa reclassifies, and he becomes the number 1 player in this recruiting class. And then Darren Peterson takes that number 1 ranking in the final rankings of 247 Sports. So, and one thing I'll add to that, JJ.
And let me do this too. Let me add this, and then I do want to get to your thought. Nate Ament's not far behind those guys.
Yeah,
because I've been guilty of this too, Kevin. It's the 3 at the top, but Nate Ament, who Duke was in till the very end, he's surging up in those rankings too when you look at this freshman class.
Yeah,
and 4.
And 2 points I want to add, and I'm not going to say this is the best freshman class we think we're going to see in college basketball since fill in the blank, because in this past year's freshman class was really, really good, especially coming into the season. You knew you had Cooper Flagg. Everyone knew Dylan Harper was a star. People were high on Ace Bailey. And then all of a sudden, this little guy named Kon Knippel ends up being the number 4 overall draft pick in the NBA draft. And Kaman Malawach is a top 10 draft pick. So this past year's freshman class was really good. But people, especially in the NBA, has really had their eyes on these 3 players coming into the NBA next season in Boozer, DeBonsa, and Peterson. The other thing I'm going to add to that, and I don't know how much of it was Olympic USA basketball select team for Cooper Flagg that really drove up all the hype, and really the hype that has been following him since his high school days. But I don't feel the same hype is there for any 3 of these freshmen. Now, maybe it's because it's mid to late August and there are no Olympics, and you're not really getting some of that content and some of that footage of this freshman phenom playing with the best players the NBA has to offer out in Las Vegas for a week. Maybe it's because there are 3 of them that people are really high on. If I have to give someone the lead in terms of the quote unquote hype machine, I think it's AJ DeBonsa. But like you said, I mean, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, and then smart to mention Nate Ament. He's not that far behind either. So it's going to be really fun to watch all these guys in a couple of months when the games start for real. And certainly this is going to be a really big time freshman class that the NBA and their GMs and their scouts and executives are locked in on, because there are a lot of players very similar to like the top 3 in this past year's NBA draft with Flagg, Harper, and Bailey that they think are going to be cornerstone pieces in the NBA for years to come.
Duke fans and everydayers, let us know in the comments down below what you think about Cameron Boozer leading the way for the Duke basketball team. There are other freshmen as well who have been standouts for the Blue Devils. We'll get to them next here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes. See clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's that simple. I've really enjoyed using Monarch Money because it's allowing me to see various things on my spending habits, including things like food delivery. So now I'm able to budget smarter and save more. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show today is also brought to you by our friends over at OpenPhone, one of our newer sponsors here on the network. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. He's Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham. I'm JJ Jackson talking about this freshman class for the Blue Devils. Cam Boozer, we're calling him Super Cam already. I know that's a pretty common nickname you throw out there for people with Cam, but I got to go for it, man. Super Cam Boozer set to lead the way for this freshman class, but there are 5 of them in this big-time class for Duke that could make a major impact. Talked about Caden Boozer maybe being a little bit under the radar in yesterday's show, Kevin. Dame Sarr is the next guy I want to highlight, who we were really high on when Duke got the commitment. For whatever reason right now, I think the chatter has kind of cooled down a little bit, given what people were able to see from him out of the open scrimmage and such. Don't worry. Dame Sarr is still going to be a big-time player for Duke.
Yeah, I've kind of expressed my concerns and what I'm expecting from Dame Sarr, being an international player, coming over to the States to play for Duke this year. The other player, and you know, I feel like, honestly, JJ, the chatter's kind of quiet on a lot of these freshmen outside of the Boozers. I feel like it's quiet on Dame Sarr. I feel like it's quiet on Nick Hamenia. I do feel like there is a little bit of chatter about a guy like Sebastian Wilkins.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think that's a little bit interesting. And when you look at Dame and Nick, they are highly regarded prospects. I believe they're both 5-star recruits. So yeah, I don't know necessarily why the chatter is not as high about them as it is others. But yeah, I think both are certainly interesting players to look at in their own right and see how they're going to develop from day one to end of the season.
What do you think we're going to see out of Dame? I mean, outside shooting, playing above the rim. He handled the ball a little bit in the open practice. How do you envision his role?
You know, to start, I think he's going to be primarily a guy who's looking to get his shot up. I don't think he's going to be a guy that defers a lot. I don't think he's going to be one of those pass first guys. Now, with that being said, could he develop into that a little bit later on in the season? Absolutely. Could he end up being the primary ball handler if things don't work out for a guy like Caden Boozer or Caleb Foster struggles again? Yeah, I could see that. But I think he's going to be a scoring type player, especially early in the year. He's going to be looking for his shot. And then I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he develops.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. I think when you look at the development piece, when we're talking about him several months now, and he, similar to Cooper Flagg, getting the turn once he turned 18, it ended up being, but really when the calendar turned to 2025, we got into January throughout the course of the season. He really turned the page. I thought that Man this past year as a freshman turned the page. Con Knipple got better throughout the course of the year. I think we're poised to see something like that for Dame. All right, what about Nick Hamenia? Because you're right, this is another guy who just got finished playing with the USA U19 team. He was the last arriving freshman for the Blue Devils. And I truly don't know what to expect, Kevin. Some days I see mock drafts that come out, and here he is, a lottery pick that we saw Gavoni have after the conclusion of this 2025 NBA draft. Other days, feels like he's forgotten about. Maybe he's going to be further down the bench. I have no idea right now what to expect from Hemenia, but I think he's a player, man. I think he can make a big impact.
Yeah, I think he's certainly the wild card, right? I think if you're handicapping this freshman class, I mean, Cam Boozer is the thoroughbred. He's gonna be your big time horse that takes you home.
Good call.
And then you're looking at a guy like Dame Sarr and Caden Boozer, who you temper the expectations for a little bit. Sebastian Wilkins, I think kind of what we said yesterday is a little bit of that long shot of where is he going to fit in? Is he going to fit in? And then it's Nick Hemenia, where it's the wild card, where it's like at times you think you see clips and he could be really, really good. And then times it's like, okay, he could be a freshman and be inexperienced. I think, and maybe I was part of this a little bit in that Team USA buildup and practices. Like he seemed comfortable to an extent handling the basketball.
Right.
And it's like, could he be a point forward type player where he's orchestrating some of the offense? And I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case, especially early on in the season. But I think if he does show that in practice and in some of the exhibitions and scrimmages, could it be a tool that Jon Scheyer uses? 100%. So I think he's really interesting. I think he's going to come off the bench to begin the year. Could he be an Isaiah Evans type? Where, like, if you remember Isaiah Evans, people were clamoring for him at the beginning of last season. He has a couple of good spurts. He has the insane first half against Auburn, and then he's kind of that spark plug off the bench. I don't have it off the top of my head how many points he averaged this past season. I think it was between 5 and 8 overall. Could that be
6.8?
Could that be Nick Hemenia? Could that be kind of his role where sometimes he comes in, he looks great, he fills it up, and then there's other times where he looks like a freshman and he doesn't get on the floor as much. So I think right now that's probably more of the expectation you would have for a guy like him.
We had 6 freshmen last year, 5 freshmen this upcoming season. Again, the 2 Boozers, Sarr, Hemenia, and then Sebastian Wilkins. 5 freshmen this year, 5 freshmen this past year, Kevin, averaged double-digit minutes. Is that kind of crazy to think about? Gongba averaged 10.6 in 30 games for the Blue Devils. Isaiah Evans averaged 14 minutes per game in 36 games. And then it's very clear to folks that Malawach, Knipple, and Flagg all averaged double-digit minutes as well.
I think it is because I think if you were looking at it at the beginning of the season, I don't think people would have necessarily expected 10-plus minutes per game from Pat Gongba last year. Just because the injury history going back to his senior year in high school kind of flared up again on him early in the summer and fall at Duke. And then you had 2 guys in the depth chart that were absolutely ahead of him in Kaman Malawach and Malik Brown. So could it happen again this year or 4 of them or something like that? Yeah, I think it could. And I think it's certainly interesting to think about. And I mean, it's kind of weird. And I know we're going to get into it in your next segment. Like the saying in college basketball is like, get old and stay old. And Duke is certainly doing that in different ways of recruiting guys who are going to stay multiple years, picking their spots in the transfer portal. But the big thing, and Jon Scheyer has said this, is they're still going to rely heavily on this freshman talent like Cooper Flagg, like Cam Boozer. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds in the years to come.
All right, Duke basketball getting set for the upcoming season, the 2025-2026 season with the number 1 class in the country. Right now, however, we're looking for Duke to pick up their first commitment in the high school class of 2026. Still waiting for the first guy to jump on the bandwagon and want to be a part of the brotherhood. However, we've got some official news, official visits, I should say, that we'll break down in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. That's next week. We're 6 days away, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ, before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Go ahead and take a flyer on the MVP race early this year when FanDuel Futures Day comes around. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show today also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the game. Each and every week, you're going to be able to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, shout out to our everydayers. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson alongside Kevin Connelly from Balt Durham. Kevin, we want to give a shout out to our guy, Ray Thompson, who left us a comment on yesterday's show on YouTube. JJ and Kevin, thank you guys. You make my day. I love Duke. I'm so ready for the new season. And let's go Duke. Ray Thompson from Naples, Florida. So shout out to him, Kevin. We've got a fan of your appearances, man.
Absolutely. Love it. Love all your viewers, JJ.
All right. So we've got some official visit news that we want to break down because we're still looking for the first commit in the next class. Duke basketball never stops. Recruiting certainly never stops, Kev. When you look at players like Cameron Williams, Bryson Howard, Austin Gooseby, Brandon McCoy Jr., Jordan Smith Jr., and the most recent one, a top 10 guard from New Jersey, Deron Rippey Jr., have made decisions to make an official visit to Duke. What do you make of all of this, Kevin?
You know, JJ, it is kind of interesting because I think recruiting, overrated is not the right word, but it doesn't matter as much, at least like recruiting high school players. It doesn't matter for a lot of teams like it once used to because of the transfer portal, because of guys switching and decommitting so often in the spring. But for Duke, it is one of those schools where it's still really important because, like I said before we went to break, Jon Scheyer said the bulk of their team and their talent is still going to come from these highly sought-after freshmen. So I don't think you can diminish and doubt Duke's presence on the recruiting trail with some of these high school players, especially how prolific they've been in landing a lot of these high-profile talents. So
it's just a matter of, kind of when, not if, is what we're looking at. Jordan Smith Jr. is the number 2 player in the entire country. He goes to PVI. They're in the DMV area, same school as Darren Harris, Pat Gongba, Jeremy Roach, Trevor Keels. Duke has long been thought to be the leader in this race, although Arkansas is making a strong push. We had Brandon Jenkins, the national recruiting expert for 247 Sports, with us on the show last week. So feel good about Jordan Smith Jr.'s chances of coming to the Blue Devils. He's so good, Kevin, looking at his game. What's so interesting, though, is that we've had 2 years of every scholarship player being at least 6'5". And Jordan Smith Jr., he's going to reverse that trend again, man, because he's a dynamic guard, 6'2". And it's like only 6'2". That's still really impressive. But, man, we've been going for a lot of length over the last few years.
Yeah, they're able to change it up, man. Jon Scheyer can do some things with some quote-unquote undersized players. But no, Jordan Smith's been on Duke's radar for quite some time, like you mentioned. I would agree that I think they're a favorite for him right now. I think they're still in the driver's seat. But as you know, things can change, and especially in these summer months where you got visits, especially going into the late fall. So interesting stuff to follow.
The other big news, the update, I should say, to give folks in regards to these visits is Deron Rippey Jr., who has decided now to take a visit to Duke, and Duke's making a strong play for him. Out of New Jersey, Blair Academy. That's where Jalen Blakes went to school within the Duke family. Keenan Worthington also went there, who was a walk-on on one of the Final Four teams. That's ball knowledge for all the everydayers out there for Duke fans. Deron Rippey Jr., though, another 6'2" guard.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really sought after as well. There are a ton of schools after him on his list that he's going to take visits to. I think that's probably one of the more interesting recruitments right now, just because how many schools are involved in trying to get him and how quickly I mean, he's been on a lot of schools' radar for a long time, but now he's really getting that national recognition. So that's one. It's probably going to be a doozy. I'll tell you that much. I don't think that's going to be a one visit and wrap it up and it's over.
Sure.
The amount of schools going after him.
Kevin, it's always great to see you, man. We're going to be following all this recruiting stuff. You guys always have tons of updates at Ball Durham. Tell us about your work and how people can support you.
Yeah, over at Ball Durham, come read us every single day. All you got to do is Google Ball Durham. We're the first link that comes up, and we appreciate everybody coming over and giving us a read.
See you soon, Kevin. Good to see you.
Thanks, JJ.
That's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Go support his work over at Ball Durham. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So close to 4,000 subscribers. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review on the Apple Podcast platform. Really would appreciate that. Let us know if you're an everydayer in the comments down below. Again, shout out to Ray, who sent us some love on yesterday's show. If you want to shout out, all you got to do is comment below and we'll make it happen. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.